And thank you for joining us here on the Trucker Strong Business Talk. We're going to be talking about how to run a profitable trucking business, and we're going to change things up a little bit here today. First off, sorry about jumping in a little bit later here today. We had a few things we had to make sure we put in place so that we can get everything working properly. Hopefully the sound's okay. Actually, hopefully you can see me. Last time we were on, we had some technical issues and didn't broadcast through, but hopefully the sound's okay. Literally about a minute before I got started here, somebody decided that they needed their carpets cleaned, and the van pulled up and started carpet cleaning. So, but it doesn't sound too loud in here, so hopefully we can work through that. As always, we like to, hey, the Preacher's on with us here. Welcome, Preacher. Thanks for showing up. And I'm glad to hear everything is working good. It's always a live coming from, things getting set up and you don't have a permanent studio already set up. That's always one of those little, questionable things as you get going. Anyways, wanted to say we're going to change things up here a little bit today. I'm just going to be on here today. We're not going to have a guest. Still plan on bringing guests in. We want to see your comments and have people join us and tell us what they're thinking and asking questions. But I put out a few things in the past week or so about some of the traits that we've seen over the years of successful owner-operators out there, whether they're independent owner-operators or leased onto a carrier. And when we had our trucking company, we definitely saw, we'll say, the haves and the have-nots. And what I mean by that is the ones who were consistently generating the revenue that they needed to generate, and the ones that would either be up and down and struggle quite a bit out there. So what we wanted to do is talk a little bit about that. And I thought it'd be a good fit for this because something happened this week. As you hopefully all know, FreightWeb is our sponsor here. And we really appreciate FreightWeb. And please go and join us on FreightWeb. And better yet, FreightWeb just this week launched their product, their carrier optimization suite. And I got a 30-day free trial. I will put a link down in after this video is done. I'll put a link to this. But if you go to carrier.myfreightweb.com, you can sign up and get a free month of this service as it's getting started. They're looking for feedback. This is really, I guess, I don't know if you want to call this beta, but this is in the early stages. There are a lot more features that are coming out. They're slowly starting to bring in load board features, which is, once you get into it, and we'll play around with it a little more, and we'll be showing demos. We'll bring people on from FreightWeb to show you about this in the coming weeks. But it's some really exciting things. If you're playing around with the load board portion, this was just launched in this week, and what they're doing is they're slowly bringing the loads into the system. What they don't want to do is dump 100,000 loads onto the system and find out that the system can't handle 100,000 loads. So they're slowly bringing them on. So don't take a look at that and say, oh, wow, there's only 300 loads in a 2,000-mile radius search. That's not going to be the case going on. It's just as it's bringing up to speed. But it's really exciting things. They're really focusing on the carrier. This isn't going to be a transportation management system that was started out for brokers and then modified for carriers, which we see a lot of these out there for the small carriers. That's what they are. And if anybody's played around with those, they realize they really don't work. From the carrier perspective, they're very clunky. So this has been built from the ground up for the carrier. One of the core pieces of technology that got started was the pricing module that they built for some other products that they have. And when I saw that, I said, you know what, guys, you've got a market here in the small carrier that really needs to have independent pricing out there where they're not beholden to other people out there. And so they took that pricing model and they brought that into here, and they're going to be doing lots of things to give small carriers like yourself the tools that you need in order to be profitable out there. So check it out. We'd love to see hear comments from you on what you think about it and how they can make improvements on there. Now, how's that all tie into this? And I'm going to show you that a little bit later. I'm going to show you some of the screenshots on here and take you through a couple of things. But how does that play into it and what I've been talking about habits? Well, there's a couple pieces in this as far as when I talk about the habits that owner operators, and I've got about 20 or so habits that we've seen successful owner operators have out there. One of them comes out to, I'm looking at my screen here on that, is, a combination of making sure the smart owner operators are choosing the right loads. They're also using technology to their advantage. And that's where some of this stuff comes in. It helps you pick the right loads. It helps you stay, not just stay profitable on the loads, but you're staying profitable on the week, focusing on the week. So these are some of the tools that allow you to do that. So that's why we wanted to talk a little bit about, what we have with FreightWaves and what's going on with some of the technology here. So let me do this. I'm going to share my screen. If I can get this down here and bring this on here. Oops. Let's see. Is audio back? Anybody? If you want to chime in, see if they've heard. Sorry, when I lost some of the audio there. Got okay. Yes, we got it back on. Thanks, guys, for that. Must be as I take my screen off. I keep the microphone on, but when I come off there. So, thank you, everyone. All right. So, what I wanted to show here is some of the other pieces. So, what I was showing with the various destinations. So, I'll do Dallas and let's say Atlanta. On there, and if any of you want to see any destinations, show those, put those up as far as in the comments, and happy to show you what they're looking at here. So we're looking at a range right now of basically 1250 to 1700 from Dallas to Atlanta. Talking about the midpoint is $1.59 on that rate, and if we had, let's say $1.40 is the rate you need right now, you're looking at $160 to $600 as far as on profit on that. So again, early stages as far as with some of the software, but this is coming down to where we're talking about some of the tools that as you're working as far as with out there as far as in the market, that you want to make sure that you have as many tools to help you make decisions on what's happening out there. And this is probably the first tool. There's lots of different rate tools out there that we've seen, but this is the first one where they're bringing rates from multiple different areas, and they've built an algorithm and have machine learning. So the more that this builds and the more this goes on, you're going to see this tighten up and get a lot better as far as where they're at with the rates. Now, understand something. Just because this has a rate tool as far as in it doesn't mean you necessarily have to agree with rates. I saw somebody talking about some other rate tools saying those rates are awful. I'm just not going to look at them. Now, the problem with that is you're taking, if you take information just because you don't like it, you're taking information and it's reducing your ability as far as to be able to make decisions on things. So you don't want to just throw something out just because you don't like the idea or you don't like the information it's providing. I've also known people to say, well, they don't agree with how some calculations. There's some things out there I don't agree with how they do things. The key with anything out there and what they're doing is consistency. If they're using the same processes and the same tools all the time, you may not necessarily agree with the rate that it's providing and think that it's accurate, but if it's consistent, it's going to give you an index. So if you start to see it rise, you should believe or should understand the market's going to be rising. So you can use it for some of that. All right, so feeling better, just recouping energy. All right, Chris, thank you for that. So let's say some of the other things, understanding freight cycles. That's one of the other things that we saw. Owner operators, as far as were successful in some of the things that they did. And we're seeing a little bit of that right now. There were some conversations today going online where people were talking about coming out of the Northeast and with the rates that they were seeing. And, I know a lot of people hate the term backhaul. They just don't like that term backhaul. So if you don't like backhaul markets, rechange it, change the terminology to it's a consumption market, meaning they bring more product in than they manufacture and they ship or that they produce in that market and they ship out. So it's a consumption market, meaning they're going to bring more trucks into the market than they have freight that's coming out. So there's going to be an oversupply of capacity in there. And you need to understand the different types of freight cycles and what's taking place, because at different times, those markets are going to turn around. A friend of mine, Craig Leonard, he was talking about coming into, I forget what it was, I think it was Mother's Day, coming into Mother's Day, that a team coming out of Miami at the right time with the flowers that were coming out from the airport was going to, a team was going to make killer money, but that was going to be for a short period of time. Understand that cycle, understand that market. Just because you see the rate spike on teams out of Miami on a Thursday and a Friday doesn't mean you want to get down there for Monday, because Mother's Day is gone and that market is, you completely lost that there. So that's just one of those things that you want to make sure that people who do a really good job understand the markets and they don't try to fight the markets. I think that's probably the other big thing that we see out there is people, as far as that are profitable, don't try to fight the markets. You are not going to all of a sudden turn around and get get 90%. If we're talking spot market, you're running spot market on both ends, you're 10% of the market at best as far as where you're at. 90% of the market bids their freight based on the rates that they're coming out with the attitude of a backhaul market. So somebody, let's say, going to the Northeast, taking freight up there, they're going to bid their freight going up to the Northeast based on what the rates are coming back. So you're tilting at windmills if you think that you're going to go and you're going to change, and 10% of the market's going to change the other 90% as far as how it works. They work on a supply and demand. They understand that they don't have a lot of access to freight. What they do is they make sure that what they need to make is based on their miles. They're getting that on the freight that's going into that market in order to help bring the truck out and make a profitable week or a profitable month. So tying that in to all this is the other piece that comes into that we talk a lot about, and people are successful, is managing your week and using the understanding as far as what you need to generate. If it's if you need to generate, let's say, a minimum of, I'm going to use $4,000 a week. So you need to generate $4,000 a week. That's just your minimum break even. You need $800 a day in order to put on your truck in order to just break even and to get where you need to go. Now, you're not going to do that every day. I mean, that's just the fact. But you don't want to put yourself in a position where it's harder to do that. And what I mean by that is you'll see people who will drive empty before they evaluate anything in the market just because they're in one of those backhaul markets or consumption markets, and they don't like the fact of what the rates are. So what they're doing is they're putting themselves in a harder situation to get their minimum daily revenue. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't times, or probably a lot of times, where you could do better moving from a bad market to a good market to get a better rate. What I'm talking about is the lack of analysis, the lack of looking at the markets and making a decision to say, hey, you know what? This freight here, I've got a much better chance of getting freight on the other market, so I'm going to make that move and do that. And so again, bring that around to as far as what I mean by that is that you better have a pretty good understanding that you're going to be more profitable making that move than not. Often what people do is they just look at the rate and they say, I'm gone, I'm moving, or they sit and they think they're going to be able to magically find a better rate. That rarely works. But they're going to just sit there and they're going to make a decision based on a certain rate without really knowing if they're going to be able to get a better rate and they're going to be able to make it up. That's what I'm talking about as far as, managing your week. So if I look at that $800 number, and let's say the difference between is you get a $600 load for a day or you drive empty for a day, what happens is you've just gone from having to do $800 a day. Take that $600 load. Now you need to average $850 a day, and you switch that around to where if you go zero on a day, you need to get $1,000 a day. That's what we're talking about, the difference as far as people making sure that they understand they manage their week. So taking a look at the numbers you need to generate. A good week turns into a good month, turns into a good year. The goal here is not on a rate per mile basis. The goal here is profit. That's the goal of any business, and what you need to do is to be generating a profit. Taking a look there, Chris, yeah, absolutely. Consistency, that really, some of the things that we talk about, and I don't really put it as far as in the habits that we talk about, but when I look at some of the things that successful owner operators did versus unsuccessful, one of them was a consistency factor, which it was huge. So for example, on that would be, they worked with, on average, only 2 to 3 brokers in a month. Everybody was working 100% spot market. And they only worked with 2 or 3 brokers in a month. And where that brought the consistency is they had the relationships built up. They knew what the freight was that they were going to have. But better than that, versus somebody brand new, somebody who values you and wants to make sure that you're going to continue to work with them. They're not going to, for example, they're not going to go and say, oh, you need to get unloaded by tomorrow afternoon, or you're going to miss the load the next morning. Let me call and see if we can do that on this load. They're not going to call you back and tell you can do that, knowing that it won't happen, because you're never going to book freight with them again. Versus somebody you've never worked with, they don't really care. I mean, I'm not saying that they all don't care, but there's a lot of them out there, and we saw that. We saw the ones who struggled rarely worked with the same broker repeatedly in the same month. They rarely worked with the same one repeatedly in the year. And so they didn't have the relationship built up, and they were the ones that were getting burned on the bad appointments, the detention, the layover, things like that, with people not answering the phones and trying to take care of them. So that held back, and that really kind of hurt them on the consistency side of things. So, so Preacher, does the system have a load to truck in the area option? If we're talking about FreightWeb here, is what they have. No, it does not have that in here. Let me show you something here real quick. I'm going to show you the load board on this real quick. And at this stage, it doesn't have that in it. But remember, this just got turned on as far as the load board this week. So they're just starting to populate. So if I bring this out of Chattanooga, and let's see if we got something here, 200-mile radius. From Chattanooga. So this is really just kind of the starting here in terms of what we have as far as looking at load. So there's some, we'd love actually go ahead and sign up, Preacher, and sign up some of you, take a look at that and provide the feedback. I mean, that's the goal at this stage right now, is being able to provide the feedback. So remember, this is a transportation management system as well as within a load board. So you're managing your loads and your trips. So if, let's say, you book this load, you actually have the ability. So let's say we did $1,500 on this load. So let's say wood products, flat, no tarp on that. We've got, they got me assigned to this power unit trailer, pay terms, dispatch. I can confirm that. And hopefully I'm not actually booking that shipment. Hopefully it's just bringing it in. Yeah. So what it basically did is, by pulling this in here, is we basically built the dispatch in the system. Right off the bat on it. So load to truck ratio is something that a conversation that we can have with the development team, if that's something that you look at. Now, I'll tell you the way I kind of look at this is, excuse me, get some to drink there. The way I kind of look at this is kind of a combination. This is your, as we always said, this is your secondary load board. This is something that you're going to do that's going to help you keep you moving, looking at different freights and different load out there. So that's kind of where this is kind of playing into, and where it's coming from on this. So it's not going to have all the advanced features that you'd have on a pro board. We used to tell a lot of our drivers is that what you want to do is you want to always make sure that you have one pro board and then you have one of the basic boards. So I think as they kind of build this out and we start to get more loads in here and we start to test it a little bit, is that we're going to see this being more of the backup board, helping you, keeping you running. Or who knows, maybe the feature build out and what we get on the feedback is hey, listen, we want to build this out into more of like a pro feature board. But that's going to be a lot of what we look for from people like yourself as far as feedback on this, on what we have out there. So please, sign up. Let us know what you're thinking on that. So let's take a look at something. We're talking about as far as, understanding the freight cycles and managing your week. One of the things that we really saw as far as change, and I think this is or things that took place when changes were happening. And I think this is something that we all can understand right now, is that there is going to be change that happens out there. And with that is, you got to make sure, as an owner operator, as somebody who owns a business, number one is, you have to look at that change and you have to see what type of changes you need to make in order to meet your responsibilities, which is another one of the 20 habits, is taking responsibility for things that are happening. And you got to be willing to, as an owner, you got to be willing to do the things that others aren't willing to do. There's a lot of sacrifices that you have to make out there. And the people who were successful, maybe they were, real comfortable in a out and back lane, and it was doing real well and it was meeting all their needs and it was meeting their responsibilities. But all of a sudden that lane dried up or something happened with it, and it just wasn't going to give them the revenue. They couldn't manage their week financially with the changes that took place there. So they had to sacrifice and maybe had to go out for a day or two. That's what being an owner is about. Too many people hear me talk about buying a job. And there are too many people out there that, they go out, they buy a job, and they expect that they're just going to be able to run the way they want to, and it's going to be just like they were a company driver, right? Everybody's handling everything for you, and you get to drive the truck, and that's not the way it is. I mean, there's sacrifices that business owners need to make, and you need to understand that sometimes you need to make those sacrifices. And as you grow, as you build your business, and as you hopefully take the financial responsibility and paying off debts and putting yourself in a good situation, then some of those sacrifices, you may not have to make as many, and you can start to reduce them. I have a lot of clients and some friends out there that have been at this for a while, and you take a look at what their life is and you say, wow, man, look, how are they doing that? I can't afford to have, to go camping and to have motorhomes and to do a lot of the things, the fishing trips, the time off, and where they run and what they run. I can't afford to do that. Well, remember, they've been doing it for 20 years or 10 years, and they made sacrifices and things like they didn't buy the motorhome when they were in their second year. They paid down debts. They're debt free. They're not factoring at levels that when they shouldn't be. So they have the money in the bank to take care of things. All these things play into it. And, so those are a lot of the things that they're doing out there, that others can't do. So they're taking the responsibility. They're adapting to the changes that take place, and having to, sometimes make the sacrifices when those changes come up. So what I'm going to do is we're getting up here about 30 minutes. If anybody has any questions on some of this stuff, again, I want to throw out here, get on over to MyFreightWeb, check it out, sign up with it, give feedback. They want a lot of feedback. Share this with as many people as you can all over the place, because the goal here is to build a tool that is geared towards helping small carriers and independent truck drivers to be more profitable. That's the goal of this product, and that's why I'm excited to be working with them and helping them develop this product. So get out there. We want to get as many people providing feedback. You may get into this and you may say, hey, you know what? This is awful right now, as far as what it's at. I mean, that just may be the case. You may look at that and say, this really just isn't. This really isn't something that we really care to be involved with. But give feedback on what you don't like or what you'd like to see change, because that's what any product or any business. I mean, if you were doing something wrong with a customer, you'd want them to give you feedback on that as well, so that you can decide whether or not that feedback was valuable and you want to change with it or not. So that's what they're looking for. I'll show you here real quick before we jump off here. So this is the dashboard. So we're saying we don't have any trips departed now. You can go into, or we can add a shipment, and put the information in here. Jump on over to the load board if you don't have one, and look for a shipment to try to book it. So what they're looking to do is to bring in freight, or to work with freight on a basis that, let's put that at delivered there. Look at working freight and try to keep you as far as with everything, as far as in the network, so you have easy access to information and can do everything from building the loads, tracking the loads. We're going to have a driver pay section. So if you have drivers, you'll be able to pay drivers, dispatch the drivers from here, manage the driver files and the equipment. Actually, in some cases here, in a lot of places, able to actually issue a bill of lading. I know a lot of people working with brokers. You don't have to worry about issuing bills of lading, but it gives you the ability to do that. And and work with a lot of the different tools that the average carrier works with, and bring it back to try to keep the carrier as running as efficient as possible. So thank you guys for your time. Let's see here. I'll jump in. It looks like another comment real quick. Preacher's asking about the app. Actually, the app isn't developed. To give you an idea, as far as when you look at this product, put this in context. We're looking at this product was less than 2 months since the developers really started working on this seriously. They had a few little of the back end pieces for other things, but what you're looking at here, most of it was done in a pretty short period of time. So the app is on the roadmap, and it's going to come out. They know they need to have an app for this. So yes, that is working. So I just haven't seen the version of it yet, but there's going to be an app as far as working within this. And before next week, what I'll do is I'll jump on and I will try the logging in and see how it works on a mobile version. I know in our bug testing that we've been doing that there's been some mobile version testing. I'm just not sure how much. So it should be mobile optimized on that as far as what they're doing. I can actually, one of the ways I can show you one little trick here as far as from a mobile optimization. Oops, not what I wanted to be on. So I can bring this down into a what we're going to look at from try to say. So as you see, you can pull this down here, and you still have access, and all the information kind of scales down based on the smaller screen size as far as it's dynamic. But what I'll do is for next week is I'll try to pull up and maybe work through it some from a screenshot standpoint, where I'll take some videos off my phone, and I can post those videos up here so you can see what it looks like actually coming off of a mobile phone. So, hey everyone, thanks for showing up. Thanks for your time. Again, make sure you share that carrier myfreightweb.com. I'll put some more information up about that. We'd love to hear your feedback on this, and we're going to continue to talk about. I'm going to start posting some more things talking about all the different traits that successful owner-operators have out there, and would love to start a conversation about that. And we're going to be bringing some more people on here next week and the coming weeks to have conversations around that. So thanks for your time, everyone. Have a good night.